The California legislature is in the process of making ethnic studies a graduation requirement for all high school students. The bill, called AB 101, lists as one of the recommended approaches the recently adopted Ethnic Studies Model curriculum. But even if this bill doesn't pass, the issue is still very much before us, in that a lot of districts in California have adopted ethnic studies as a graduation requirement, and a lot of teachers are teaching it. This is why anyone concerned with what's happening in public education, in particular what our kids are being taught, needs to start paying attention. What exactly is involved in ethnic studies? To understand this, I'm going to take you to a recent CTA conference on equity and human rights, where this very issue was discussed. The speaker is Dr. Ziza Delgado. She teaches ethnic studies and is chair of the department at Fullerton College, and she's on a statewide commission on ethnic studies.
It's important to understand that ethnic studies, the movement for ethnic studies, was guided by a very clear call for self-determination, both within universities, but also for people of color in the broader society. And the moment that the strikes that created our field came about was not a coincidence. They were students who created the Third World Liberation Front, the name of the movement that was responsible for the strikes at San Francisco State University, at UC Berkeley, and other places, were born out of the most expansive decolonization and anti-colonial era in history. So those revolutions, the Bandung Conference in 1955, where decolonized and countries who had already achieved their independence and those who were in the process came together, excluded Western nations. And it was the first time that third world people came together and really focused on creating a dream of a new world that they wanted to envision for their communities, that was focused on self-determination, that was focused on liberation, and that was anti-colonial at its roots. And this era, the prominence of the Black Panther Party in the Bay Area, and their involvement both at San Francisco State and UC Berkeley in the founding of those ethnic studies departments.
Dr. Delgado describes the tumultuous 1960s very well. She talks about the Third World Liberation Front, people of color fighting colonial oppression abroad and fighting for equal rights here in the United States. I remember those times very well. 50 years later, this same Third World Liberation Front and the people who were a part of that movement originally are now a part of the movement behind the current ethnic studies model curriculum. This raises a very important question. Have we made absolutely no progress in race relations over those last 50 years? I was taught by Martin Luther King to judge people not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Are King's teachings irrelevant, meaningless? I want you to listen to another clip. The speaker is Dr. Melina Abdullah. She taught at Cal State Los Angeles in ethnic studies. She is a member of the Human Rights Commission. She was instrumental in making ethnic studies a graduation requirement in LA Unified, and she was an original organizer of the Black Lives Matter movement in Los Angeles.
Thank you so much, CTA, for having me. My name is Melina Abdullah, and I am deeply honored to be moderating this panel, to be among educators who are committed to liberation for Black people and by extension, everybody else. I've been asked to just offer a quick frame, and here's the frame I'd like to offer, that we are in a moment when the world is cracked wide open, that we have an opportunity right here in this moment to usher in courageous and visionary and liberatory models, to rethink everything, reimagine everything, and build something new. We know that the systems under which we currently live, the public safety systems that are tethered to jails and prisons and police, educational systems that really are forms of schooling rather than liberation, healthcare systems that tie people to outcomes that are disproportionately problematic and sometimes deadly for Black folks and Indigenous folks and other people of color. We have an opportunity to completely upend those systems and to build something new. Here's the challenge that we face, is that it's not just that those systems are trying to entrench themselves in their current form. It's that they're also trying to dupe us into believing that change should be limited to reform, to reform. We know that liberation only comes when we transform.
Dr. Abdullah is very clear about what we need now. Reform is not enough. What we need is total, complete transformation. The Ethnic Studies model curriculum uses the phrase, quote, transformative resistance, end quote. And this is based on the belief that the United States is systemically racist and that our society is based on the matrix of the oppressor, who is white, and the victim, who is a person of color, and that only transformative resistance will change this dynamic. Please help us in stopping AB 101, but more important, talk to your kids about what they are being taught, or if they're being taught ethnic studies in their classrooms. And finally, ask your district what their stance is about ethnic studies. Thank you for listening.